Tom, on behalf of the Pro Bono Institute leadership, we're very honored to have you serve as a co-chair of tonight's dinner. While at dinners in the past, we have attracted general counsel and law firm managing partners and chairs, this is the first time that the president and CEO of a major corporation has been in this role, and we're absolutely delighted to have you here. I know that as a lawyer yourself, you have an understanding of and a natural affinity for pro bono service, but I wonder whether your involvement here tonight signals a different kind of role for top corporate leaders in supporting corporate responsibility.
Well, Jim, it's a great pleasure to be here tonight. It's been a great homecoming for me. I ran a company called Reuters, an English company started in 1851 in London, famous mostly for its news and later for financial information products, which was acquired about 18 months ago by Thomson Corp, and I was lucky enough to come home and be asked to run it. And it was a great homecoming for me because I started life as a lawyer. I always felt that the people who went into the profession at some level had a greater sense of fairness, of service, of giving back. I've known, as all of you have, our fair share of scoundrels in the law as well. But on balance, you know, there are few professions that I think have as many people who really do care and are committed to a sense of justice and who have as poor a reputation generally, which we all bear with a certain good humor. So it's been great for me to come back now to Thomson Reuters, since we have this wonderful legal business which is really woven into the very fabric of American law and over time law around the world. And pro bono service, which is something I did on a very, very small scale when I was an associate at Davis Polk in New York, we're now able to do with some oomph because of the people in the large legal business centered around West Publishing. We're a signatory to the corporate pro bono campaign, and the large amount that we offer in kind services and directly in support of pro bono.
Tom, corporate social responsibility, as it's commonly understood, obviously includes things like treating employees well and promoting environmental sustainability and developing diversity and all of that sort of thing. But of particular interest to the folks here tonight, I think, who are concerned about pro bono, is the central idea of the creation of a corporate culture that promotes volunteerism among employees. And I wonder how you would characterize those kinds of initiatives within Thomson Reuters.
Well, I think they're really important. I mean, to be effective ultimately, I think one needs to be both top-down and really walk the talk at the top of the company. But ultimately, to get things done, you need to energize everyone in a company, in our case, 53,000 people around the world. So we do a lot of work through the Thomson Reuters Foundation. Monique Villa is at our table, who very capably runs it, and that's a top-down focused effort. But I'm also very proud of what we do bottoms up with very little work other than just a bit of alignment and financial support. So, for example, in our legal group, we donate something like 1,800 volunteer days every year, largely to pro bono related activities, but also people who just want to go to Africa and build homes or do things in their local communities. So a bottoms-up community-based effort is, I think, vital.
This larger notion of pro bono, which grew out of, I think, pro bono by lawyers, but now has sort of gone well beyond the legal profession, seems to have taken hold in the corporate sector. For example, the federal government recently initiated a program called $1 Billion and Change, in which they are trying over a 3-year period to generate $1 billion worth of professional donated services from corporations that meet community needs. And we've seen a substantial number of non-legal professional service firms respond to this challenge, corporations like Intel and Pfizer and the like. and who have pledged their support to try to make this work. And this seems to borrow from the pro bono tradition in the legal community and trying to take sort of corporate volunteerism to a new level. I wondered if you'd agree.
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right that lawyers in many ways have a much more direct relationship. Study in law school, probably were self-selected to care and be passionate advocates. And corporates, I think do it for two reasons ultimately. Some of them do them for the same very noble, deeply felt reason that they want to give back. And others do it for sort of what I call polishing the apple. It may not be sincere or their original motivation. Maybe the head of marketing comes to them and says, hey, you better do this. But, I don't think we should worry too much about that for two reasons. One, because often when you start down that path and actually work with people in need, you fall in love with it and become passionate of it and convert to the good reason. And second, there's so much stuff that needs to get done in the world. We can use all the help, whether it's true believers or just true pretenders.
Absolutely. I think it is clear that the legal tradition of pro bono is informing some of what happens, at least in corporate social responsibility. I wonder if you might reflect for a moment on whether there are any lessons that go the other way. Are there things that law firms and lawyers and those of us in the profession can learn from the corporate responsibility traditions in corporate America?
It's a real good question. I think there are probably two things that come to mind. One is this sense that you want to be top-down and bottoms-up. I mean, law firms, and it's a nice thing, have tended to be smaller, more collegial organizations, but many of the firms represented in this room have become billion-dollar businesses around the world. And so recognizing that scale, I think they may need to be more sophisticated about recognizing they need to do things from bottom up as well as top down. And probably the other thing that every company worth its salt does is measurement and benchmarking, which often seems, I know lots of lawyers who say, well, you can't possibly capture the full elegance and brilliance of what I do in numbers, but if you're talking about, local finance initiatives or what have you actually done to get representation for the poor around the world, I think you can look at numbers, and that's a lesson that can be learned.
That segues nicely to the last question I wanted to ask you about corporate social responsibility, and that is that corporations, as well as their law departments and the law firms that serve them, are obviously now operating in a global context that really is not entirely new, but certainly has grown exponentially in recent years. And I wondered what your view is of the impact of globalization on corporate citizenship.
This would be a worthy subject of a 90-minute or all-day seminar. To spare you that agony, I think what I'd say are just two things. One, that is the mission of the Thomson Reuters Foundation. So there's a component, one of the three legs. One is disaster humanitarian relief. One is journalism and journalist training. And the third is what we call trust law. And trust law is all about how do we take the mission, the excellent work that you've done here with the Pro Bono Institute, and really blast it out globally to so much greater need, often in countries that have a less recognized role of the law as a lever of social change. And the other is recognizing, and this will be a difficult one for lawyers everywhere, that we are living in a multilateral world, that it's not just an issue of the extraterritorial application of U.S. law, but a web, a mosaic of international laws. And through our product approach, the international elements of Westlaw Business in particular, because the corporate lawyers here will recognize that, when a London lawyer does a deal for you or a New York lawyer, you don't spend a lot of time with reference to the legal substrate. Those are really the two ways in which I think it is internationalizing. We have to recognize that need all around the world.
In clearly turbulent times when we're all focused on being more businesslike, Tom, I want to thank you for reminding us that many of the greatest companies in the world hold giving back as a core value and an important element of good business. So thank you very much for being with us.
Pleasure.
Thanks.